All right, folks. Hope everybody's doing well today. Thank you for joining another edition of Webinar Wednesdays with XenTegra. Today, my guest, I have a special guest and special partner of mine, PolicyPak, and we're going to be talking about MDM and group policy today and kind of the state of affairs in 2018 and what you should consider in 2019. On the phone, I have Jeremy Moskowitz, who is the founder of PolicyPak, but also, a master in GPOs, a Microsoft MVP, and it's an honor to have him on the phone because I've known his materials for a long time and a big fan of a lot of the other stuff he does outside of PolicyPak, and he'll cover some of that as he goes through his content today. And then on the phone as well, you have myself, Pete Downing. I'm the CMTO for XenTegra, and run these probably bi-monthly. We run 2 to 3 a month and try to bring on great content that we can show to you guys and try to focus more on technical content and demos. And before I dive in, just a quick shout out to Jeremy and his book, Group Policy, Fundamental Security in the Managed Desktop. If you haven't checked this book out, it's a great book. It should be on your desk, especially if you're a day-to-day administrator. Personally, I have 2 of his older books and also this book on my desk, and I reference this book quite a bit in my day-to-day, especially dealing with Citrix, Microsoft, and the general end-user computing scenarios. And also, if you haven't, definitely bookmark this page, go.xentegra.com/webinar. This is where I keep a tally of the ongoing webinars that are coming up. I'm also going to be expanding the page to include all the past webinars and their recordings. So if you missed the webinar, don't fret. I will put the recordings up and you can certainly watch them. And then if you have any questions, you can definitely reach out. Coming up in the next 2 months, because the year is coming to a close, we have topics that are going to surround Tracerat and printing. Kumu, which is an interesting company around video and video sharing within the enterprise, a new company that we're starting to work with here at XenTegra. And then finally, Uber Agent, longtime friend Helg, who started that company, and we partner with those guys on our MSP side of the business. So today, what I want to do is just do a couple polls, 2 polls, and then Jeremy's going to jump into PolicyPak and spend most of the time talking about PolicyPak, give you some great demos, and we'll cover any questions you may have. We'll cover those questions throughout the session, and then finally I'll cap it off on who the heck is XenTegra. And then finally, if you have any questions and you want to go live, I can unmute you guys and you can ask your questions live if you feel so bold. So again, if you have any questions throughout the day today, there is the Q&A dialogue box that you can definitely throw your questions into. I'm going to be monitoring them, as well as Lauren, who's on the phone. And we will answer them as they come up throughout the content today. So do not hesitate to ask any questions throughout the session today. And that kind of plays into my housekeeping. So again, Q&A dialogue, you are on a GoToWebinar, you are muted. And at the end, if you feel like asking a question live, we can unmute you. And again, if you have any questions, use the Q&A dialogue box. So a couple of quick polls just to get the ball rolling and keep the content interesting. So the first poll is a very simple poll. It's around GPOs. So do you currently use GPOs today? And is this a key strategy for you in 2019? So curious to see how many people use group policy objects today, and or is this a strategy for you as you move into 2019? And Jeremy's going to spend a lot of time talking about this today. And we got about 63%. Let's just go for a couple more seconds. 3, 2, 1. And we're going to close the polls and share them. So a good chunk of you use group policy object. And I can tell you right now, Jeremy's going to spend a lot of time on how PolicyPak can help you with your GPO management and make it a lot easier around MDM in general, as well as twining the 2 together. And again, for those who have said no, hopefully you walk out of here today with some food for thought on where you can implement PolicyPak. All right, so let's talk about mobile device management and mobile app management, and we'll define these as we go through the day today. But are you considering a mobile device management solution and or mobile app management solution in 2019? And in my experience, a lot of people aren't really using an MDM solution yet. So this is where PolicyPak can help you guys potentially. So this is another topic we're going to cover today. And I'll give a couple more seconds for those who haven't voted yet. And again, these are anonymous, don't worry. All right, we're going to close and we're going to share. And so a good chunk are considering a solution. So that's good. Another chunk of you guys are say this is a priority, and I can probably take some guesses why, but we'll let Jeremy cover those. And finally, there's a few of you who have a solution in place. So great, and we'll give you some food for thought on where PolicyPak can help you. And then finally, little simple question: are you using Azure AD today? So I'm going to launch that poll. Simple answer: yes, no, but considering it, or no, not on the radar yet. And this just helps us kind of tailor the content a little bit. All right, give it a couple more seconds. Let's get some more votes. Going once, going twice, going 3 times, and we're going to share it. So 50-50. And that's typically what I see when I do these events, whether it's Citrus Cloud oriented or some of my other partners. So thanks for partaking in the polls. And again, that helps. So again, the goal here is simple. We want to simplify your job as an IT administrator or end user computing administrator, whatever you do. And, I put this picture up on social media. And again, I think it's funny because, typically, when you think about IT in the enterprise, people are like, oh, IT, they lock me down. But the whole job of IT is changing. It's about servicing your customer base and enabling your users to be more productive. So again, we're going to jump into the topic today, MDM in group policy, the state of affairs in 2018. So I'm going to pass over to my friend and Jeremy, and founder of PolicyPak. So Jeremy, I'm going to make you the presenter.
Okay.
And the floor is yours, my friend.
All right. You can still hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. And then you're just going to tell me that I'm going to full screen mode and you can see that. Okay. And then from that point, I'm good to go. All right, great. Thank you guys for spending your morning or afternoon, or maybe you just woke up, rolled out of bed. I have no idea, but thank you for spending some quality time with us today. Pete did a great job with the introduction. My job today is to make sure you are on track to understanding the current state of affairs with regards to group policy and MDM at the end of 2018 and as we head into 2019. I actually have a feeling that this slide deck is going to be evolving over time. I expect that I'll be doing this talk many times throughout the next couple years, and things will transition and change, and it will be interesting as it progresses. But this is the state of affairs as it shakes out right now. If you don't know me, again, you can find me at PolicyPak.com, and also you may know me from my work at GPAnswers.com, which I've actually recently rebranded as MDM and GPAnswers.com. So if you either go to GPAnswers or MDM Answers, you'll wind up at MDM and GPAnswers.com, because I'm starting to have more and more content around not just group policy, but also MDM. So with that in mind, what I want to do is sort of get most of the talk today is not about PolicyPak. In fact, that's actually going to be like the last 20% or something. So I want you to settle in, and I'm going to try to make sure that you feel comfortable being able to have a conversation with your boss about the state of affairs, about what MDM is and the vocabulary around that. And that's actually where I'm going to start right here. So we all know what group policy is, right? That's the settings management you've come to know and love with your on-prem AD. In fact, I can still confidently say that group policy is still the premier in-box way to manage settings for domain join machines. Let me say that again. It's the premier in-box way to manage the heck out of settings for your domain join machines. Group policy will not relinquish that as its crown. That is going to be its forte forever. But then there's also other vocabulary that we're going to have to get familiar with. Azure, what the heck is Azure? If you ask 100 administrators what Azure is, you may get 90 to 100 different answers. But here's my definition. It's Microsoft's cloud-based identity service, ... that does not give a crap about policy management. Let me say that again. Azure is an identity service that has nothing to do with policy management at all. Remember when you bought Active Directory, when you stood up a domain controller and so on, you got identity management and you got policies along for the ride. It's not how it works in Azure land, and I'll explain why in a second. Then we have the topic of enterprise mobility management. You might see this term a lot. This is sort of the fancy term for like managing the heck out of anything that could be a phone, it could be a tablet, it could be something that doesn't exist yet. This is just the generalized idea of managing your universe. It's a little nebulous as a term. It's more of a marketing term than anything. I would not consider it a very technical term, and I don't tend to use it that much. What I do tend to use is MDM a lot for mobile device management. So MDM is a couple of things. It stands for mobile device management, and mobile device management is an idea, and it's also a protocol. So MDM is a protocol, like GPOs is sort of like a protocol. So GPOs is a kind of thing where you can wrap up settings and get them deployed, and MDM is a kind of thing where you can wrap it up settings and get them deployed. MDM also has a secondary kind of vocabulary as well, which is also called modern device management. So you can see if you happen to be at Ignite this year, it's a big push, like switch to the modern device desktop, and you make the switch to modern, bing, 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 bing. So you're going to see this term modern a lot and over again, as to say, as opposed to say what's called traditional device management, which is what group policy and SCCM would be. So MDM is modern device management, and group policy and SCCM and so on would be traditional device management. So MDM also has another third vocabulary called an MDM solution. This is the thing that you buy. So the idea is that if you once you've decided that the scenarios that we'll talk about are interesting for you, are interesting enough to buy into, you need to put down your credit card and you need to buy a thing, which is different than how it worked in regular on-prem Active Directory, right? That's not how it worked. You just stood it up and you had it. Now you need to bolt something on. And what are the things that you bolt on? That's your MDM solution. This is a cloud-based MDM service. Now, P.S., there are some MDM services that are not cloud-based. You can stand them up on-prem and they will do a similar thing. But I would argue that the up-and-coming ones are the ones that are cloud-based ones. So the ones that you've probably heard of are Microsoft Intune, Workspace one that was called AirWatch, Mobile Iron has one, and Citrix Endpoint Management, which is used to be called XenMobile. These all ostensibly are equal. In fact, that's sort of the dirty little secret about MDM solutions, is that none is really any better than another in some aspects. And what I mean by that is that the MDM, the engine that's in the box from Microsoft, there are knobs and bells and things that you can, switches that you can flip. An MDM solution enables you to turn those knobs and flip those switches. There can be some additional superpowers that an MDM solution might provide, but by and large, the dirty little secret is that they're actually all very, very similar. There are, like I said, some are a little easier to navigate, some do a little bit better with, Chromebooks or whatever, but the point is that they are all generally the same. That actually brings me to my next point, which is the idea of the MDM engine, okay? So the MDM, the engine, is the moving part or the guts that are built into these devices. Now, actually, MDM didn't originate or get born or start with Windows. In fact, it got kind of born and originated and started with things that are not Windows, like iPhones and Chromebooks and Macs and all sorts of things. And actually, Windows was a little late to the game on this, but that's sort of the dream here of MDM. The dream of MDM is, okay, I now have a one-stop shop where I can create a policy like enable strong passwords, and every freaking device on the universe will now have strong passwords, your iPhones, your Chromebooks, your Windows 10, and maybe something that comes next. I don't know. Maybe there'll be some wearable device. Actually, there is a wearable device that is MDM enabled, which is the that HoloLens. That's actually MDM enabled. So the idea is that you don't know what's going to come next, but the idea is that the MDM engine is built into these devices, and one of these MDM solutions is going to be able to flip the knobs and the switches in order to manipulate the policy settings that you want to get done. Okay, so what the heck is Azure Active Directory? Remember, it's not about policy, okay? Azure is not about policy, it's about identity. It's a way for you to have your user records in the cloud, and this gives you a couple of different things that you can use to your advantage. The first thing is that it's a bridge between your MDM device and your MDM service. Let me slow down and explain what we're talking about here. Your MDM device needs to get enrolled into an MDM service, but it doesn't know who you are until Azure gets in the way, right? That's the point. In other words, it needs to be the bridge. So if you want to learn more about that, you can get this here. I guess Pete's going to send out the slides, something like that, a little bit later. But you've seen this before. Who owns the PC, right? do you own it or does your corporation own it? Oh, your corporation owns it. That's fine. Here, what's your username and password? Bing, bang, boom. Oh, are you ready to make it managed? And shabam, you're enrolling through Azure Active Directory backward into your MDM service. This device is going to get managed by your MDM service. And by the time it's over, at that point now, you've got a way to reach out and touch that machine in a way that you didn't have before, okay? So other vocabulary around this would be, there's this thing called DJ++. It just makes you sound so cool at a cocktail party. Oh yeah, I've got my machines. They're all DJ++. Yeah, man. I would definitely buy somebody a drink if they said that they, DJ++ their machine. I wouldn't even know what that meant. Anyway, it means that it's shorthand for being both on-prem domain joined and also using Azure AD. So a computer can be traditionally domain joined and also enrolled into Azure AD, which pretty much implies that it's also being managed through an MDM service, although it doesn't necessarily mean that. Okay, there's this other wacky thing called workplace join. You can see the picture of it down on the right. This means the machine is not managed, but it gives you access to some resources and applications. Let's go back a click here. Remember the first item on the slide here, we said it creates identity user records in the cloud. Well, what's the point of creating user records in the cloud? The point of creating user records in the cloud is that when you have computers or users that need access to resources, that identity can work to their advantage. For instance, when I know that I'm in the sales department, get me access to Salesforce, the application, because of my identity in Azure. When I'm in the marketing team, get me access to Box because I'm a member of the marketing team in Azure. So it gives you a bridge between who you are and what you have access to. And this workplace join thing is an option. If you don't want to manage the machine and you only want to do that identity thing, well, you can use the workplace join in order to make that happen, okay? So the machine isn't managed, but you can give that person some access to some resources and webby applications, okay? Want to learn more about this? You can check out this link, which talks about Azure AD joined or workplace joined, what is the difference, and so on. So I found that to be helpful. So here is my analogy. I know a lot of people sometimes flip out and are concerned about what does it mean to have a traditional world and then think about heading toward an MDM land. Well, here's my analogy for the traditional world. This is you on your mansion with your horse farm and your pool and your endless acreage of land. There's a lot of advantage here. Okay, we can agree that there's a lot about this picture that who wouldn't like this picture? You can build your house as big and tall as you want with your own architecture. You have your horse stables over there, which is fantastic. But man, when the roof gets a little leaky, that's kind of a problem. You gotta fix that yourself. And oh, your horse is getting a little sick. You got to call a vet in for that. And your pool is turning green. You got to call somebody for that. Oh man, turns out that having a lot of landscape has some upsides and also some downsides. Okay, so from a traditional perspective, when you have traditional management, you can build it your way. Oh man, I'm sure that the guy riding this horse, he built this house exactly the way he wanted, and why not? He had all the time and all the land and all the resources in the world in order to do that. So this is what I want you to keep in mind from a traditional management perspective. From an MDM perspective, you get a condo. Now, hold on a minute. I'm not saying that the condo is bad. I want to be super clear. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying it's different, okay? It's a different style of life. And you can see out front, there's the guard shack, okay? So there's some security built right into that. That's pretty nice. Well, there's no room for your horse farm. I see that. There's just no way to do that horse farm thing. Okay, well, you don't have that, but at the top of the roof deck there is a nice swimming pool, and there's a bowling alley too, which is pretty nice. So you have some extra entertainment value there, and for a little bit extra, you can take dance lessons in the lobby, which is pretty nice too. So the point is that you can see that you are in an apartment or a condo similar to other people as well, which has its advantages and its disadvantages, which is to say, like, well, the security part is taken care of for you. Oh, you've got a leaky pipe. Chances are that's going to get fixed for other people. If you have a fire in the building, that's bad because everybody catches fire too. That's not good either. But you can also see that there's parking. But the point is that you can see that it's not a better or a worse lifestyle. It is a different way of dealing with how to live. So traditional management basically enables you to open up the door for just darn near everything. MDM is a little bit more is more constrained. I wouldn't actually limit it to say it's a little more constrained. MDM is more constrained, but maybe you don't need the giant horse farm. Maybe you don't need to have all that stuff. Maybe the kinds of maybe condo living is just perfectly fine. You could say, well, man, maybe my organization's too big for condo living. Well, you can think of it as sort of an ever-expanding condo, but I'm just using it as an analogy. Maybe the analogy is not perfect, but that's where I've landed here. Okay. So what is the MDM goal and the dream here? So there are really two big drivers as near as I can see it. One is that people want MDM to be simpler than traditional management. They want it to be simpler. So what does simpler mean? Well, it is simpler in that there's not 200 SCCM servers anymore. Okay, right? I was certified in SCCM. I can confidently describe the glory and the pain of SCCM. So it's nice is that you don't have to include your SCCM servers anymore. You could also say that it's direct. You're directly talking from you, the MDM service, to your client, the MDM guy, which is nice also. So there's no more intermediary domain controllers, and there's kind of less to go wrong in that way. I will argue that right now it is definitely not quite as simple as group policy, to be honest. And I'll explain why I feel that way. And again, these are my opinions. What do I know? I'm just one guy, but this is just my opinions. I don't feel like MDM is quite as simple as group policy yet. Getting better, but not quite as simple. But it is simpler in that there's not 200 SCCM servers anymore, and it is simpler in that it's more direct, which is pretty nice. The other kinds of big goals for MDM and dreams that I see is that MDM's job is to open up new scenarios. I want you to keep that phrase in mind. You're going to hear this over and over again in the next coming years, that MDM opens up new scenarios. And the two scenarios that I think are really, really great that already exist and are reasonably well baked in by now is out-of-box experiences are definitely better, right? So now you can have a guy who loses his laptop in a taxi, go to Best Buy, buy any damn thing he wants, and get logged on to the network, and provided you set up your MDM service reasonably well, bang, he'll start looking like he did the day before he lost his laptop, which is nice. And the other experience, which is nice, is actually nuking that machine from a remote wipe experience. So that is also definitely better. There's nothing in group policy that says, hey, remote wipe. And there's nothing in group policy that says, hey, when I get a brand new machine, kind of get it set up all perfectly and so on. These scenarios are in fact enabled with MDM, and I respect that. I think this is great. I'm all about new technology that will in fact open up new scenarios. So that's totally fine. Now, when it comes to the models for organizations, I feel like there's going to be 4 possible ways of thinking here. There's always going to be organizations, I think, until we are dead, that are going to stay with on-prem, AD, group policy, and SCCM. There are lots of organizations that have no internet connectivity whatsoever, like secret labs in the Himalayas or whatever that are doing testing on things and whatever. Like those guys, no internet connection. They're not good candidates for MDM. Okay, that's just not the thing. They're going to probably stay with AD and group policy and SCCM until they're dead. Then the next level would be to augment. You've invested a lot of your time and effort in your career in traditional stuff, and those scenarios keep working. They don't stop, and Microsoft isn't turning the lights off on that stuff. What is true is that these MDM scenarios are now available to increase the depth of what we were talking about. I call this your augment. So you're going to keep what you've got on-prem and do some MDM augmentation. There are going to be some companies that want to rip and replace, like, yep, hey man, we've seen the light, we're good. The condo thing checks out for us. Turns out we didn't need that horse farm in the first place. We're going to just rip and replace it and jump in full end. That's great. If that's who you are, more power to you. That's totally great. And then there are also companies that are just starting out in the world. If you are just starting out in the world, I agree that it's probably not the best strategy to go and build a brand new Active Directory and start domain joining them. I think that there is value in this idea of zero infrastructure being a green field and using modern management techniques in order to manage those guys. I do see that there is value there. So my prediction is that most companies of 500 or more users will probably end up being in the augment camp, where you've got all these traditional things you've done for a long time. You've got your group policy, you've got your SCCM, you've got your Citrix, you've got all this stuff, and then you're going to use MDM to augment to enhance and open up some new scenarios that didn't open up yesterday. I think most people will be in the augment camp. Will they take my group policy or SCCM away? No, they're not going to do that. That's not a thing, okay? Group policy is not dead. It is not being deprecated. It is not being turned off. SCCM is not being turned off. It is not being deprecated. Microsoft is calling this idea of using your current on-prem alongside cloud. They got a new cool vocabulary for it now. Ready? It's so easy. It's called cloud attached. You just cloud attach your world, and you get all these extra benefits. It's so easy, just cloud attach. All right. So the reality for me in the foreseeable future is that you're going to have parallel or intertwined worlds. I don't think you're going to turn off your traditional stuff. You might, but I think for the foreseeable future, you're going to have parallel / intertwined worlds over the long haul for a very, very long foreseeable future. Again, to beat a dead horse, is group policy dead? No, group policy is not dead. Okay. If you want to, you can Google for Group Policy Manifesto. You cannot miss it. It blew up the internet. In our space anyway, and you're still welcome to read it. I keep this up to date from time to time. Anytime Microsoft does anything in group policy land, just to prove group policy is not dead. Again, there's always new settings in the ADMX land. Every new version of Windows ships with brand new amazing settings like managing Edge or managing the desktop or whatever the heck. They're always putting new settings in ADMX. What is true, however, is that group policy preferences is not getting any improvement. So the stuff that's broken in there is going to stay broken, and the group policy engine is not getting any improvement except for security things. So the group policy engine is not going to get any faster. The reporting is not going to get any better. The good news is that they did a great job over the lifespan of group policy, which is about 18 years of active development, and as such, all the hooks that people need, like me, to with companies that have group policy, we can do a lot with what we have in there. So we're able to improve on the engine. We're able to improve on group policy preferences. We're able to improve on a lot of areas, and time permitting, I'll be able to show you that a little later. So group policy for Azure, again, Microsoft has no cloud-based way to deliver real group policy settings through Azure Active Directory. That's not a thing. Azure AD, not a policy thing. So don't expect that Azure to somehow take on group policy. That's not its job. What you should expect is that MDM settings coverage will increase over time, but it is not trying to take on or replace group policy. Maybe that tone will change, but as it sits right now, that's not its job. Microsoft is currently stating that they're opening up new scenarios, things that may still be important, but they're not trying to replace or take on all of group policy's things. So when I talked about before that group policy versus MDM is, still a little bit of a battle, this is kind of what I mean. Like if you wanted to change the Edge homepage setting, where do you go? You see this profile type? Do you go to endpoint protection? Do you go to custom? Do you go to device restriction? I don't know. The problem is that right now it's a little bit cumbersome trying to find where these settings are. They're kind of a little bit all over the place. This one happens to be into device restrictions, and then what category is it in? You happen to have to know it's an Edge browser category. You happen to have to know that it's the particular setting. This part, if I'm going to be critical, this part is a little crunchy and could be improved a little bit. So you have to kind of know where you're going to gun for a particular setting. When it comes time to actually look at a report, there is what's called the basic report and this thing called a diagnostic report that you can see. It's a little bit like group policy results, but for MDM, this could also use a little bit of improvement. I expect that this will probably get better over time. There are also a bunch of settings that you have to kind of know, is this setting valid for the user side or the device side or both? You have to kind of verify that in advance. You have to go to the documentation, like here's the browser home pages. Yep, sure enough, it works for both, device, the user and device. But if you didn't know that, that could be problematic, and you could be, chasing your tail wondering why it's not working as you might expect. Now, there's also this idea called ADMX-backed settings. ADMX-backed settings are real group policy settings that have been pulled into the MDM world. In 1709, there's 386 special curated ADMX-backed settings, and you can see where they are here if you want to take a look at the documentation. When the thing about these is, remember, these are the MDM team is trying to guarantee that new scenarios are opened up and will work for you. So these 386 special backed policies are are guaranteed and ready to work. Actually, I say 1709 there. I think I mean 1809, so I made a little mistake there. So these are handpicked and guaranteed. Now, there are two ways that you can implement these settings. There's the easy way and the hard way. You might not have even seen the easy way yet because it's a feature in preview. The idea is that there's going to be a new node called Administrative Templates, and you can see this flat list. It is not a hierarchy list. It's a flat list. You have to type in the name of the setting that you want, and then you get something that looks reasonably familiar, and you can say, excuse me, you can then say you want it, say, enabled. That's all fine. If that's the easy way, but remember, not all the settings are here. When I did the math on it, I think something like out of the 386, only like 200 are here. I'm not quite sure why. Maybe it's because it's currently in preview. Maybe that'll get better over time. Again, I think it's a work in progress. I'm willing to give a little leeway there for now. The other way is to do this thing called the hard way, which is called a custom OMA URI setting for these for these policy settings as well. For instance, you want to kill Adobe Flash. Well, gosh darn it, that setting doesn't exist as a clickety-click in MDM land, at least in Intune. Maybe it exists in one of the other ones. Doesn't exist in Intune land. Fine. So if you want to kill Adobe Flash, you have to know the secret OMA URI handshake and bang it in there in order to make that work. This takes a little bit of sleuthing. There's documentation on how to do this. It is not easy. My goal is I hope that Microsoft will at some point put all the settings that they can into this administrative templates thing and just make it super easy and drop dead easy. Right now, not drop dead easy, which is a little bit of a bummer, okay? And what's that? You've got a custom setting you want, like Fox IT Reader. Well, this becomes even more of kind of a challenge. You need to know the formula. I mean, like anything else, anything in computers can be done. You just sort of have to know the formula. So you have to jam in the XML that defines the ADMX, and then inside there, you then define the OMA URI against that ADMX that's now on the machine, and set the updater policy to say, to do the thing. All right, so this is definitely a harder way. I also expect that this is going to get easier over time. You can see the result here in my Fox IT Reader is that bang, I've delivered the setting, do not install updates, and I can see that Fox IT Reader policy preferences are displayed in the MDM land. Okay, so how do we answer the question of how do I get Microsoft Group Policy over the internet? Because what a lot of people are saying is that, okay, there are going to be some things that Microsoft is curating in those particular policy settings that they have, but then there's all this stuff that I'm beholden to. Like if I want to get some settings that Microsoft doesn't have, how am I going to do that? How am I going to get those settings that I need for my machines out there? Well, here are the answers to that question. First and foremost, hey man, you can give VPN access. It's an oldie but a goodie, but it totally works. And then they get connected to your on-prem AD and get group policy that way, provided they're also domain joined, right? You can use direct access, which is great, but that's enterprise only. It's sort of like an always-on VPN. There is a new thing called always-on VPN that will work all the way down to Windows 10 Pro, which is nice. I recommend it. It's great. It does work as advertised. And then there's always, like Cisco's version of that, other third-party things. There's also the idea where you could use PowerShell to run group policy-like scripts on MDM endpoints. I would not recommend that. I do not think that is the right approach for describing policy things. I do not think you should script your way to glory. I think that is a huge problem waiting to happen. When you leave the organization, then people are like, I don't know what that script does. I don't know how to turn a policy off. A script is kind of a one-way choice. There's no way to really undo a script, at least with the stuff that Microsoft has in the box, okay? So the last way that you can get Microsoft Group Policy over the internet is to use either PolicyPak MDM Edition or PolicyPak Cloud. So PolicyPak Cloud is our standalone version. It is not an MDM service, but it does work with domain joined and non-domain joined machines. That's mostly for MSPs that have 20 little customers and so on. If that's you, that's great. If not, if you already have like an Intune, an AirWatch, or a Mobile Iron, but you're thinking, gosh, how do I get my real group policy stuff over to my endpoints? That's what PolicyPak MDM Edition is all about. And that's what I'm going to spend a little bit of time on. Aha, now on to the commercial part. Okay, so everything up to this point was all neutral information, okay, stuff that you can take to the bank and use whatever you want. But this, now, here we go. Now I'm going to take off this hat. I'm going to put on this hat now, and now on to the commercial part. Okay, so what PolicyPak isn't and is. There are 3 editions of PolicyPak, and they all come with the same basic stuff. So PolicyPak is not a handy collection of ADM files. It's not what we're trying to do. We're not trying to replace group policy or try to replace SCCM. We're not trying to replace your MDM, okay? That's not what we're trying to do, okay? We're also not sold separately by component or pack. So if I show you something in here, anything you're gonna see today is all included, okay? I'll explain how it's all included a little bit more. You're going to have to keep a little bit in your head for during the demo. I know I hate to give anybody homework, but that's the deal, because I'm going to be doing 2 demos. The first demo I'm going to be doing is the PolicyPak MDM edition. Even though in the MDM edition you get all this stuff, what I want to focus on just for today is taking your on-prem admin templates, group policy preferences, and security settings and get them over to your MDM enrolled machine. So that's what I'm going to show you in the demo, the first demo. Okay, that's part 1. Okay, so we're not an MDM service. That's not our job. We're going to let you use your own MDM service to deliver any freaking setting that you want. Okay, that's the point. That's one of the big things you get. You also get all the other stuff that we do as well. But again, my focus for the first part of the demo is to get the Microsoft group policy settings over, but you can also get any PolicyPak setting over MDM as well. And we'll deliver to non-domain joined and domain joined machines. The second thing I'm going to demonstrate is the group policy edition, and then I'll do some base hits kind of around the field here, talk about least privilege manager and browser router and some of our greatest hits. Hang tight, I'll get to that. I don't want to belabor that right now, okay? So we're going to be setting application settings, we're going to remove admin rights, we're going to do some browser router stuff, some write Java stuff. I'll show you how to reduce GPOs. I know a lot of people want to do that as a project. So time permitting, I'll show all this stuff. So how do you really get from group policy over to MDM land? So you already know about ADMX settings. Great. Well, what we can do, I'm sorry, I forgot for a second. So we've got all your ADMX settings, including your third-party ones. You already know about ADMX settings. You know about group policy security settings, and you know about group policy preferences settings. What we can do is after you've created your policies and your little gem and it's all perfect and ready to ship, what can we do? We can teach you how to export these as XML for admin templates, export them as security settings, and export them in group policy preferences land. We're going to wrap them up into an MSI. Don't worry, I know I'm going through this fast because I'm going to demo this in 2 seconds. And then you're going to upload it into your MDM world. So the idea is that here in MDM land, and this is workspace 1, we've got our moving part, we've got your licenses for your company, and then here are your settings. What does it look like in Intune land? Here is our moving part, here is the licenses, and here are our settings, okay? So I've already done this step, okay? And I'm going to show you what it looks like when it's over. Once you've got PolicyPak alongside your MDM service, bam, that's the rocket fuel you need in order to take your group policy settings and get them deployed using your MDM service. Okay, remember, part 1 is about MDM, and part 2 is about the group policy edition, all right? All right, let me get on with the show here. So and while I'm getting geared up here, if you have questions and so on, that's totally fine. So just go ahead and ask your questions and so on. Okay, hopefully you can see my screen and we're ready to rock. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a garden variety group policy object. It doesn't really matter what this group policy object is called or whatever. I'll just call this ABC123. It doesn't really matter. And I'm going to craft the settings that I want to get over to my MDM land. Okay, that's all I'm doing is I'm using group policy to craft my settings. So the first thing I might want to do is go to policies, Windows settings, and security settings, and then I want to go to local policy security options. I'm just going to pick one of these. I'm going to pick the rename the guest account. Okay, and I'm going to define this as MDM demo. Okay, great. So I've renamed the guest account as MDM demo. Okay, that's the first thing. Now, how do I export that thing? Is there a way to right click and export that? Nope, not there. So we enable that. We give you this ability in the PolicyPak node over here under Security Settings Manager. Okay, there it is, Security Settings Manager, to take the setting that you just did, and we're going to show you a wizard to export that setting. We'll click next. We see the setting there. We'll go ahead and click next again. Okay, and I'm going to save it into like a little folder bucket for us for a little later here. So I'll go ahead and on my desktop here, create a new folder called demo123. I'll call this ppsec export 1. All right. Yep, I definitely want to save that out. All right. Okay, so I've got my first file saved and ready to go. The second thing I think I want to do is I want to create a group policy preference item. Maybe I'll do this on the user side. So I'll go to Preferences and go to Shortcuts here. Okay, and in shortcut land, I want to create a new group policy preferences shortcut, and I want to make this a URL, and I want to plunk it on the desktop, and I want to call this www.policypak.com, and I want to make the target URL the same thing, and I want to make the icon this little lock guy here. There it is. I love that little lock guy. All right, so I've created a little shortcut here. Gosh, how do we export this? Well, there's two ways. Way number one is you can just drag and drop it to the desktop like this. Whoop, that's totally cool. So I'll just go ahead and take that, and I'll find my little demos folder that I've got here. Here we go, demos. Put that puppy right there for later. That's one way. And if you didn't know that existed in our node called PolicyPak Preferences node, PolicyPak Preferences Manager node, we have a little wizard, and we'll walk you through the export. Same basic idea. Okay, so we see that there's an item there. There's the shortcut. What do you want to do? We can then export it. Same exact thing. You just saw me do it. It's not a big deal. It's the last one that I want to spend a little bit more time on. The last one might be like an admin template setting that you've come to know and love, like under policies, admin templates. Like let's take a look under, say, control panel personalization. Let's take a look over here. Gosh, there's all the best stuff here. And I will tell you that Microsoft in MDM land does not have all the best stuff yet, okay? But if you wanted to, let's see, I want to password protect the screensaver. Very important to password protect the screensaver. Well, actually, you don't do it here. What you're going to do is you're going to go to Admin Template Manager node here, right-click, add a new policy, okay? And then we're going to do it here under our node. And we get the exact same policies because we're using the same central store and so on. So what we'll do is we'll go to Control Panel, Personalization, and we want to password protect the screensaver. I'm looking right, here we go. Password protect the screensaver, that's the guy. Click add, and we'll enable this guy, and we'll click okay. All right, we're ready to rock. What do? Right click this guy, export as XML. We'll put it right in the demo bucket. We'll call it PPATM export 1. All right, there we go. These are 3 settings that I have no idea how you would configure them in MDM land, but I do know that they're policies, and I do know that we can convert them from policies into MDM land. How do we do that? We give you a little utility called the PolicyPak Exporter utility. Okay, PolicyPak Exporter tool. And we're going to create a new MSI here. We're going to add our existing files, which are right here in demo123 land. Whoops, there we go. And let's suck them all in, bickety bam, and do a little change up right there. Okay, and we're ready to go. Those are the 3 settings we just created. And we'll go ahead and make a little MSI here. So I'll call this MSI out 1. And there it is. Now, let me go ahead and copy this for a second. And here is my MDM machine over here. I'm going to just paste it right here for a second. Okay, hold tight. Now let's take a big deep breath and let me show you what my current state of affairs is on this MDM enrolled machine, okay? He's being managed by Intune, okay? You see he's got a bunch of policies there. He's got a bunch of applications, but you know what? He doesn't have these particular policy settings. Look, the screensaver is not password protected. If we look at the local policy setting here for rename the guest account, it's still guest. I'll go ahead and close these out. And we know that shortcut, okay? But what I do want to show you is that he's already downloaded 2 of the 3 things we need from MDM land, our moving part and your license files. I don't have time to have MDM wait to make the magic happen. So I'm just gonna pretend that MDM is delivering this. So I'm gonna double click this. Okay, this is doing an install as if MDM would do it. Okay, you just saw me create this. And don't blink, right around here somewhere, you should see the lock icon show up from Group Policy Preferences land. Okay, that's the first thing we're hoping to see. Okay, we'll give it about 10 seconds. There we go, bam. There's the Group Policy Preferences item. And let's check our other item. Let's look at the security item. Let's see if the rename the guest account has taken effect. If we go to Windows Settings, Security Settings, and go to Local Policies, Security Options, guest account rename. Yep, sure enough, guest account is renamed, and you can see that it's locked down. User can't work around that. And then lastly, let's go to the screensaver. Screensaver, there we go. Let's change the screensaver. Let's see what happens when we click on this guy. Oh, boom, there we go. We see that we've delivered that just like that. So from MDM land, we're getting, let me refresh here. So from MDM land, we're getting all three things. We're getting our moving part, we're getting your license file, and we're getting the packaged settings that you saw me create together. Now, Pete, how much time do I have left to go over other stuff?
You got about 10 minutes.
10 minutes? Okay, that's great. All right, so if that's it from the MDM demo perspective, what I want to do now is switch gears over to the group policy perspective. So the idea is that the group policy edition and the MDM edition cost exactly the same. Why is that interesting for you? Because all the stuff I'm about to show you from a group policy perspective, maybe you want to do on-prem, and then you've got a bunch of things that you want to do in MDM edition land. Fantastic. It's the same price. So you can have like 80% of your things being the on-prem edition, the group policy edition, I mean, and then 20% being the MDM edition. So let's do some around the field demonstrations. One of my favorite and most important security things is to get people the hell off of local admin rights. You don't want to be in the local admin right business anymore. So when you do this though, you're in what I like to call the ditch. The ditch means that applications that ran yesterday, they won't run today, like this guy that throws a UAC prompt. Or you try to go into Device Manager, and Device Manager says, hey, I'd love to help you, but you're a standard user, and but you got to be an admin to do things like upgrade a device driver and so on. Or when you were an admin, you used to be able to install something like Skype, but when you try to go to install Skype now, what does it do? Bing, 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 bing. You're going to get a UAC prompt. You see the shield. You know you're in for it. So what we're going to do is use PolicyPak with the Group Policy Edition here for our East Sales users. We're going to do PPLPM, get out of admin rights business. All right. We'll right click here and click edit. The group policy you know and love. We're targeting our East Sales users using all the normal group policy stuff. Go to user side, PolicyPak. We'll dive down under least privilege manager, and I'll just hit all three of those things all in one shot. I'm going to add a new executable policy, and I want to say let that old and crusty application like Procmon run elevated. So I'm going to pick Procmon here. I happen to have a copy of it here. So here's process monitor. Boom, run it with elevated privileges, and we're ready to go. Next thing I want to do is add a new control panel applet. Okay, Device Manager wasn't playing nice with me. I want to make it so that my users can get into Device Manager, run that with elevated privileges, bing, bing, bing. And the last thing I want to do is a new Windows installer policy. I want to say, look, I'm cool with anything signed by the Skype guys, okay, signed by the Skype guys. That's okay to install as an admin, but when it comes time to run it, it's going to run as a standard user. So we're running the install as elevated, but by the time it's over, we're going to run the actual application with regular privileges. So I'll run GP update on our endpoint. Let's just see all three things kick in, and when we do, we'll move on to our next thing here. All right, remember, if you go through the documentation, Microsoft is very clear. You don't want your users running with the scissors ever. That's fine. They don't have to run with the scissors because you can make the application that you need to run with the scissors. So in this case, we're letting this old and crusty application work just fine. If we want to go to Device Manager, what do we get now? We get no more prompt. We also say that if you need to upgrade a device driver, you can do that now if you need to. We also have some helper tools that let you update things like printers, printers, network, manage your network card, and also remove programs, which is pretty nice. And Skype here, as an example, you can next, and you're off to the races. Skype installs. Okay, so huge security fixer here with Least Privilege Manager. The other part of Least Privilege Manager that I think is really important for us to get a grip on is this challenge that, well, you, Mr. Admin, using your your deployment technique, whatever that is, you've deployed applications that are good, and then you don't know what any of the junk is that the user has installed on the endpoint, right? Or downloaded off the internet. Is this a real application or is it malware? Is this ransomware thing that they clicked on, is this thing good? Is it bad? You don't know. All you know is that Windows will let it run. How about any garden variety script here? You know, what's the story with this? Will you let users run these scripts and potentially get, have bad things happen to them? Or Java malware that we've got here, is that something you want users to be able to run? Probably not. So what we can do in one click, okay, is this thing called Secure Run. Secure Run says, if you, Mr. or Ms. Admin, didn't install it on the machine, then the user can't run it. Let me show you what this looks like. So this is one-click way of one-click whitelisting, okay, which totally works amazing. I'm very proud of the way this works. So what we're doing is remember the lash up. All the stuff over here is stuff you installed, and all the stuff over here is junk you don't know where it came from. So let's see, does Firefox still run? You installed it for them as an admin. Does it still run? Yeah, it sure does. How about this stuff that you don't know what it is? Well, that's going to be blocked. How about Ransomware Simulator? Well, that's going to be blocked. How do we know that? How do we know all the right stuff to block? What's the story here? Well, the story is very simple. The story is, if we look at Firefox or anything that you deploy using your technique, and we go to Security Advanced here, what you can see is that the owner of the file is the administrator. But if you look at the user who downloads crap off the internet, who's the owner of the file here? That is the user. Aha. So what we're doing is we're making a distinction between the administrator on the box versus the garden variety user. And we're saying, hey, if you're a garden variety user, you can't run stuff unless it was installed by an admin. This is a huge security boost. If you've already got something like AppLocker in place, that's great. I'm not trying to take that away. But what I hear from people is that AppLocker takes 8 billion clicks, care and feeding, just like, and I wrote about it in my group policy book that Pete talked about. I like it. I'm not saying it's bad. It's great for what's in the box, but I think it can be easier. And I think we made it a lot easier. We made it one click drop dead easy, which makes it super awesome. And by way of example, if you have an application that is being blocked and you don't want it blocked anymore, that's no problem. All you do is you just add a new executable policy or one of these other rule types. And let's say you wanted to let something like CamPlay through the doggy door now because it's now closed. No problem. You can say camplay.exe. That's cool. Oh, let me actually do star camplay star. Oh, what did I do wrong here? Path. Let's try that one more time. Right click, add a new executable policy by name, and I'll do file. Here we go. Camplay.exe. No. Let me browse for it instead. Let's do that. There we go. I think oops, maybe I should do it by path. Maybe I've got it trained that way instead. Let's do add new executable policy by hash. And here we go, CamPlay. There we go, that ought to do it. And we don't want to run it with elevated privileges. We want to just allow and log it. We just want to allow and log it and let that puppy through. And now if we go ahead and run GP update here and give this a second to finish off here. All right, what we want to see happen is that CamPlay is now available and will rock and roll through the system. Here we go. And there we go, CamPlay works. So that's the point of the story. You want to block all the crap you don't know what it is, and you want to enable all the stuff that's available. I know I'm running a little short on time, so what I want to do is sort of just explain ever so briefly what the other big chunks of the universe are here in PolicyPak land. We kind of got famous for managing the heck out of application settings. So if you want to manage the heck out of Firefox, Flash, Java, Internet Explorer, OpenOffice, Acrobat, we have 500 pre-configured packs ready to rock, enabling you to manage the heck out of all these things. We have Admin Template Manager, one of my favorite things. You saw me use it to create and then export admin template settings. It also has another superpower, which enables you to compress GPOs and smash them together. And if you wanted to, you could also take any given setting, and this is a group policy kind of 400 level thing. You can take any given setting and say only do that setting when a condition is true. You can use group policy preferences as item level targeting alongside of admin templates. It's a huge, amazing superpower. Browser router will let you route the right website to the right browser, because everybody knows there's some browser somewhere that, some website that only works with Firefox, some website that only works with Internet Explorer. And for the billionth time, you don't want to have to tell users stop using that. Okay, we went over least privilege manager. Start screen and taskbar manager will help you manipulate exactly what your start screen and taskbar is going to look like. It's one of my favorites. Java Rules Manager will help you get more secure in Java land and wrestle particular websites to use a particular version of Java. File associations will do file associations only on Windows 10. It is amazing, fantastic. File Delivery Manager is coming soon to a theater near you and will help you deliver settings, deliver full files to your endpoints, group policy and through MDM, which is great. And we've got Scripts Manager, which is a thing which enables you to deliver new settings in a script fashion, and something coming soon to a theater near you, Feature Manager for Windows, which is going to enable you to add and remove Windows features from the endpoint. That's all I've got. Again, if I had unlimited time, I would give it to you. We do webinars every day on PolicyPak, all the way end to end. So if you want to see all of what PolicyPak can do, join us any day. Just go to policypak.com. And then / I think it's we can't miss it on the top of every page. It says webinar / download. We'd love to see you there. You get a lot more about the Group Policy Edition. After that, we hand over the bits, and you can try it out for yourself, and we'll give you white glove service all the way to the end zone. All right, that's it. With that in mind, I'll turn it back over to my friend Pete.
Thanks, Jeremy. All right, so great overview on PolicyPak, and I loved how you level setted in the beginning. It just creates a nice baseline for people to understand the industry, the terms, because there's a lot of terms out there. But also coming from you being one of the industry experts in GPO and MDM management, I think it's even better. So thank you for taking time to join us today. And really quick, I just wanted to dive in and highlight who is XenTegra. So first off, we are a partner of PolicyPak. So if you have any questions or need to understand how you acquire this great software, you can definitely let us know. You can go directly to PolicyPak. We can work with you to make sure your POC is successful, and we look forward to growing our partnership with PolicyPak in the coming year. Again, if you have any questions, definitely put them in the Q&A dialogue, because you have one of the best experts on GPOs on the phone right now, and you definitely want to try to take advantage of that. And again, you can buy Jeremy's book, and I highly recommend that as well. But really quick, just to cover who we are, this is Andy Whiteside, our founder and CEO. And so he really wants to build a partner that is different. And so when Andy was an SE at Citrix, and myself, I was at Citrix for about 10 years as well, his big goal was to form a partner that was different, because when he was an SE, he just felt that partners weren't being, for lack of a better analogy, true partners. And the reason why is because they wanted, every time they were knocking on his door, it was, hey, bring me your customers, not, hey, how can I help you, or how can I enable you, or how can I show your stuff. And so Andy formed XenTegra with two thoughts in mind. One, he wanted to be a true partner to partners like PolicyPak, and two, he wanted to focus on customer enablement, and that's why we do events like this. And if you go to our site, XenTegra.com/events, you'll see that we do a lot of different events around hands-on workshops, half-day workshops, webinars, et cetera. And that's really where we drive to, a lot of our leads and lead generation is to enable you, customers and or prospects. Again, we do run this series bi-monthly, sometimes 3 times a month. I invite different vendors to come on. Sometimes it's, general topics, and sometimes it's vendor specific. And as I said, we're going to close out the year with some great guest vendors. And then we're going to kick off the year with a couple new topics, and I'll be launching those topics in the coming weeks. So definitely, if you're interested, definitely sign up for some of the future webinars we have. And I try to make it nice balance of, who the company is, but more demo, because let's face it, you guys like demos. So really quickly, who is XenTegra? Obviously, we're a reseller, so we can sell, any of the solutions we talk about today. 2, we can consult not only on the solutions, but generally in the end user compute space. So that's where we are experts. And then finally, we can act as an advisor. So if you have any questions on any of the solutions mentioned today, we can obviously give you our insight and input based on our consulting bench. And then finally, the favorite part of being on this side of the fence, because I spent the last almost 15 years in the software space, I was able to, I'm able now to talk about multiple solutions in multiple vendors and give you the best solution on one piece of paper. So that's kind of nice too. One throat to choke is what I like to say. And then finally, if you take a look at, XenTegra, and I'm going to skip that slide, we do have a lot of great partners, and, PolicyPak being one of them. But if you take a look at the top, our bread and butter is end user computing, and our premier partner is Citrix, and everything we do centers around Citrix. Now that's obviously pivoting now a little bit with Citrix and Microsoft. So Microsoft Azure, Microsoft in general, we are a Microsoft Gold partner as well. So we're a Citrix Platinum partner, and we're a Microsoft Gold partner. And any of the vendors you see on the slide today, we are a partner of. And PolicyPak, in one way or another, plugs in or helps a lot of these vendors on the slide today. And that's one of the reasons why I love working with Jeremy and team. So if you take a look at, again, this is my architectural view of the world. You can tell I'm a techie because I did it this way. The 4 core areas we focus is end user computing, networking, cloud, and security. And, you guys can dive into each of these, but really our goal is to enable you end to end around end user computing, whether it's MDM, MAM, traditional VDI, server-based computing. And obviously with those, you need networking, and a lot of you are starting to pivot to cloud. So our goal is to provide an end-to-end solution across all 4 buckets, whether you're on-prem, you're in the cloud, or we can do a managed service. So we do host our own cloud called XenTegra Cloud, and we can also do an MSP service around Azure and Azure AD, Azure Cloud, any of the services up in Azure. And then finally, you can leverage us for consulting, whether it's a fixed project, a block of hours, and or a virtual resource. And then we can also be a frontline support for you as well. So again, I always like to close with this. PolicyPak is a great partner of Citrix as well. If you are considering attending Citrix Synergy 2019 in Atlanta next year, let us know. We want to help you get there. And we do this in 2 ways. 1, if you are considering Citrix Cloud, let us know. And 2, if you have a renewal coming up, let us know. We can give you a rebate towards going to Citrix Synergy. In some cases, that rebate will pay not only for your pass, but your flight and hotel. And then finally, free micro assessments. We do a lot of assessments, aka health checks around Citrix. And we also have a great assessment around GPO and AD as well. So if you're interested in just getting a general idea of how your environment is in the Citrix world, and or just standalone, if you are considering migrating to Azure and Azure AD, we can come and give you a free health check and focus on those 2 key areas. And we also do some other assessments around networking, general end user computing, et cetera. So let us know if you are kind of stuck in the mud, as I like to say, and we can help you get unstuck and give you the right solution and help you understand how PolicyPak can plug in. So some things to think about as you leave here today. And again, thank you for taking the time to sit with us. If you want to get a deeper demo, as Jeremy said, head to his site. They do great webinars every day where they take you through the product. And or if you want a more personalized demo, we can arrange that as well. So let us know. If you want to get this set up in your environment, the PolicyPak has great training, and also we can help you get the POC up and running. And then finally, when you want to purchase, let us know, and we can help and help you go through that process. And again, we don't want to be the guy in the way, so we'll work with PolicyPak to make sure the process goes smooth. And then when it comes time to renew, you can renew through us as well, and we can make sure you're using the product effectively. So those are the 4 things I want you to think about as you leave here today. And again, we can help in all 4 of those areas. And again, we have a great partnership with PolicyPak. So again, if there's any questions at all, you will get an email from me via GoToMeeting. If you reply to that email, it will come to me. I can loop in Jeremy. But just in case, here's our information, just so you have it. And if you have any questions in general on PolicyPak and or the state of MDM and GPOs, you can definitely reach out to myself and or Jeremy. And if you have any questions right now, feel free to throw them in, and I'll give it about another 30 seconds as I close out. So any last words, Jeremy? Sorry. Any final words from you, Mr.
Any final words? Well, I think that 2019 is going to be an interesting year. I think the boss is going to start asking, the boss is going to be on the golf course somewhere, and he's going to be like, what's our strategy for this MDM thing? And I think anytime that we can have, be conversant in knowing, well, we're doing fine the way we are. We need to keep using group policy and or SCCM or Citrix to do our thing. And hey, look, there are these new scenarios that are up and coming where we need to cloud attach and do MDM style things. I think that would be that's my ending thought is, the more you become conversant in this, it doesn't mean you have to run down the street and start implementing everything right away. But the good news is that with products that are like us, that are both group policy and MDM enabled, hey, at least you know that you've got a partner that's forward thinking that can get you there when the time is right. And it may not be 2019, but you should start having the conversation in 2019.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And again, thank you, Jeremy, for taking time out of your busy schedule and day to join us today. And I already have a great idea for a future one, so I'll be circling back with you on some thoughts that came up as we sat here today. So thank you for taking time, and thank everybody for taking an hour out of your day to join us again. And everybody have a great rest of their week.
Thanks, man. Take care. See ya.